Everyone saw the blood on her hands, but no one asked why. It wasn't the shot that hit me first. It was the silence after. That kind of silence where your brain lies to protect you. I didn't run. I didn't shout. I just turned, slow, confused. Like maybe it was nothing. Like maybe I hadn't heard the crack echo off the hills. But then I stepped past the barn and saw the eastern gate swinging open. And Diesel. He was on his side, legs curled like he'd tripped mid-sprint. Dust still rising around his body, blood soaking the ground beneath his chest. My bull. My peace. My last connection to a time when the land still felt safe, and standing 5 paces away, calm as a whisper, was Karen Baldwin, HOA president. Human migraine. A bear-trap smile. Scoped hunting rifle slung over her shoulder like she was returning from a picnic. I had no choice, she said before I could even ask. He startled me. I thought he was a hog. Her voice, steady, clean, like she was narrating a documentary on PBS. I knelt beside Diesel, my hands instantly red. He was still breathing, barely, each breath a gasp, each inhale sounding like a rusted engine failing to turn over. Karen just stood there. I've seen ferals around here, she added. HOA adjacent zones are vulnerable. I was doing a safety patrol. You opened the gate, I said, staring at the latch, still warm. It was already ajar, she lied. Faulty fencing. You've ignored the last 3 citations. I didn't. Speak. Couldn't. My hands were shaking, but not from fear. Diesel's eyes found mine. Dull. Slower now. He made a soft sound, almost a groan, and kicked weakly against the dirt. Trying to stand. Trying to live. Karen stepped closer. Honestly, Jack, you should have put that animal down years ago. My head snapped up, and that's when I knew. This wasn't a mistake. This was a hit. You planned this, I said. You're being dramatic, she replied. If you'd addressed the code violations when we warned you, this could have been avoided. I stood slowly. She took a single step back. Not afraid, just calculating. Her fingers grazed the rifle sling like she was itching to add a period to the sentence she'd already written. Don't escalate this, she said. Behind me, Diesel groaned again, louder. Karen turned toward the sound, squinting like his dying was an inconvenience. Some animals don't know when to quit, she muttered. That's when it happened. I stepped forward and hit her. No warning. Just a swing from somewhere deep, from the part of me that remembered war and sacrifice and brotherhood. She dropped fast, rifle swinging free, mouth split open, no scream, just a grunt. She looked at the blood on her palm and smiled. Perfect, she whispered. Then louder, you just made this criminal! I stood over her, chest heaving. Diesel coughed behind me again. Then silence. You assaulted an HOA officer, she spat. On camera! What camera? I snapped. There's a drone over your barn. Check the tree line. I didn't need to. I already knew she'd set the stage. I told them you were agitated, she said, brushing dirt from her vest like it was a courtroom suit. Said you were threatening me. You're not even hiding it. I don't need to, she said. This is self-defense. Lawyers will call it a tragic case of mistaken identity. And then, sirens. Not close, but gaining. First cruiser rounded the bend, then another. Dust spiraled behind them, and through the windshield I saw the badge, Sheriff's Star, my son's star. The first car stopped, doors swung wide. Caleb stepped out. My boy. In uniform. But right now, he wasn't family. He was law. His eyes. Locked on Diesel, then on Karen, then finally me. He struck me, Karen said, holding her bloodied hand high. I filed a safety report about the bull. Thought it was feral. It rushed me. Then he attacked. Caleb didn't move. Didn't blink. Didn't even reach for his weapon. He looked at me and I saw it. That look. The one I wore once. In a war zone, surrounded by noise. Trying to figure out who the real enemy was. Dad, he said quietly. Step back. I did. Not because I was guilty, but because I needed to know if he still believed in me. They didn't cuff me, just opened the cruiser door. You coming? He asked. I nodded. The station was cold. That kind of cold that gets into your teeth. They put me in a room with no windows, no camera, just a folder with my name and a cheap pen beside it. I stared at the pen for too long. Part of me knew what was inside that folder. Part of me was afraid to confirm it. Karen had filed charges before the blood dried on her lip. Battery. Threat to public safety. Interference with HOA governance. Not like a woman in shock, like someone following a plan. When Caleb walked in, he looked tired. Not angry, tired. The kind of tired that doesn't sleep off. She filed this morning, he said, dropping the folder. It's time-stamped, 3 hours before the shot. I said nothing. Just stared. That's not a coincidence. No, he replied. It's not. We didn't speak after that. Because some things don't need saying. That night in holding, I dreamed of Kandahar, of heat waves and firefights and a broken sink. That wouldn't stop running. But when I looked in the mirror, I didn't see myself. I saw Diesel's eyes. I woke up gasping, not from fear, from knowing. This wasn't going to end in court. This was going to end with someone in the dirt. Why do the quiet ones always know when war is coming? I got out the next morning. No charges filed yet, just a pending investigation. But the look in Caleb's eyes told me everything I needed to know. He was stuck, torn between the man who raised him and the badge that now owned him. He didn't speak much, just handed me a release form and nodded toward the door. Eddie picked me up in the old truck. She didn't ask questions, didn't say a word until we were halfway down Route 7, sun still low behind us. You want coffee? She asked, eyes forward. Or a crowbar? We pulled into the driveway and saw them before we even got out. 2 HOA reps, fresh from the corporate hive, decked out in matching polos with clipboards and tablets in hand. One wore sunglasses that still had the barcode on the arm. The other had a GoPro strapped to his chest, filming our fence line like he was scouting for a reality show. They're measuring post depth, Eddie muttered. Reflective index violations, apparently. Reflective what? Our new paint's too shiny. Infractions. HOA Clause 6.3.2. Inside the house, the mail was neatly stacked on the kitchen counter. Among the bills and coupons was a certified letter. Baldwin and Crane Law Associates. The envelope was thick, too thick. I slit it open with the edge of a steak knife and found exactly what I expected. A $1 million civil complaint. A demand for an emergency hearing. A copy of my HOA non-compliance record dating back 5 years. A press statement, already drafted, claiming I was emotionally unstable and known to threaten neighbors. Not a lawsuit. A campaign. That night, Caleb came. By the house. No knock. No greeting. Just stood in the doorway like the floor beneath him might collapse. She filed to have me removed as sheriff, he said. She afraid you'll remember whose side you're on? She says I'm compromised. Are you? He didn't answer, just walked to the dining table and slapped down another folder. Drone footage, photos, a timeline, all building a case that I was the aggressor. Not a man grieving, a man cracking. You need to stop, he said. She shot my bull. She filed first. She planted that gate. It doesn't matter, he said. It looks like you snapped. I did snap. Eddie walked in, drying a mug with a dish towel. Then snap again, she said. Just do it smarter. We both looked at her. What? She shrugged. They're fighting dirty, so should you. The next morning there was a note taped inside the gate. Karen's handwriting, sharp, rehearsed. Tell your wife to stop making threats. Next time I'll respond in kind. I didn't tell Eddie. I just walked to the barn, opened the locked box marked "Do not open unless it's war," and pulled out the camera rig I hadn't touched since Kandahar, back when I trained local militias in how to film propaganda for allies. If Karen wanted to watch me, fine, let her. But this time, I'd be filming too. 2 days later, an unmarked envelope appeared on our porch. No stamp, no name, just a single photo inside. Karen behind the paddock, rifle in hand, smiling. But what twisted my stomach wasn't the pose. It was the angle. The shot had been taken from the back stairwell of the sheriff's department. I called Caleb. No answer. I tried again. Voicemail. That's when I knew. This wasn't just a land war anymore. This was a breach. Someone on the inside was feeding her. Maybe Luke. Maybe someone worse. Either way, I wasn't just being watched. I was being hunted. You ever feel your skin crawl inside your own home? Not from fear. From recognition. That something doesn't belong? That week the house felt like a stranger. The barn was too quiet. The wind too soft. The perimeter sensors weren't tripping, but the dirt told a different story. Odd boot prints. Half smears, half impressions. Like someone wanted to be noticed, but not confirmed. And that's when I started watching Luke. He'd been with us 9 months. Came cheap. Worked hard. Didn't drink. Didn't gossip. Never called home. A godsend during the spring floods when my knee locked up and I couldn't lift a feed bag. But now? Now. He closed his tablet every time I entered the barn. Now, his answers were clipped. Now I realized I didn't know where he came from. No pass. No contact number. The fence log caught him. We keep records. Call it a military habit. Every patrol logged. Every reset recorded. Luke's log, 2:17 a.m. Eastern Line. Same spot Diesel died, but the camera that should have confirmed it? Offline. The logs? Wiped. That night, I didn't knock on Luke's trailer. I just walked in. The air smelled like gun oil and body wash. Too clean. On the counter, his tablet was open to a folder labeled Permits. Inside, HOA bylaws, survey maps, documents with Karen's name in the metadata. But the kicker? A letter, scanned, signed, from Karen Baldwin. Dated 2 weeks before Diesel was shot. Subject line, East Fence Compliance Strategy. I stared at that line longer than I should have. A part of me still wanted to believe he didn't know, that he was just used, but this wasn't paperwork. This was collusion. I didn't confront him. I set a trap. Told Luke I was heading to meet our attorney. I'd be gone all day. Then I parked 2 miles out, hiked back, climbed into the old deer blind with a cold sandwich and a thermal scope. At 2:24 p.m., Luke exited the shed with a phone and a black box the size of a deck of cards. He knelt at the fence, clipped the device under the lower rail, didn't even look over his shoulder, but someone was watching. I pulled the box 5 minutes later. Inside, GPS tracker, fresh batteries, thumb drive duct tape to the circuit board. Back home, I plugged it into an offline laptop, 33 video files. Some showed the front porch, some the barn. One showed Caleb stepping out of his cruiser. Another showed Eddie through the kitchen window. The final clip? Me, walking the fence, pausing beside the eastern gate, staring into the dark. There was no audio, but I knew exactly what I was thinking. Then my phone buzzed. No name. No number. Hope you're enjoying the show. Next episode drops soon. I called Caleb. He didn't speak as the clips loaded. She filed to remove me this morning, he said quietly. Ethics complaint, interference. She's silencing the only badge she can't buy. You gonna let her do it? Long pause. Not yet. That's when I made the call. We flip him. Caleb didn't like it. Said it was risky. Said we'd lose control, but I wasn't playing defense anymore. I found Luke in the feed room. You plant anything today? I asked casually. He hesitated. Like what? Like a tracker. Under the east rail. He froze. I held up the box. Your prints are on the tape. He swallowed. I can explain. You'll explain in the barn. Eddie followed. So did Caleb. She brought duct tape. He brought backup. We didn't tie him up, didn't shout. Just stood there. Silent. Until the silence broke him. Karen had paid him. Off the books. Told him he was documenting non-compliance. He thought it was harmless. Just surveillance. Then came the drone logs, the GPS, the unlocked gate, the cameras turned off at precise moments, and finally, Diesel. I didn't know she'd shoot, Luke said. She promised. I didn't speak, because I didn't believe a word. We didn't arrest him, we marked him. Eddie ran his plates. Caleb traced his calls. I installed a trail cam facing his trailer. We let him go, because I wanted Karen to think she still had a mole, because now I had a better one. That night, a new file appeared on my burner laptop. Audio. No label. Karen's voice. If we push him hard enough, he'll punch. All we need is the moment, then the narrative writes itself. She hadn't just anticipated my swing, she orchestrated it. I wasn't just reacting to her plan, I was playing it. This wasn't self-defense. This was a script, and if she wrote it, I just skipped ahead to the part where someone gets buried. You ever look at your own home and feel like a guest? Not because it's changed, but because you have. After we flipped Luke, the house stopped feeling like a fortress and started feeling like a trap, not because we were unsafe, but because now we knew the threat wasn't outside the gate. It was inside the fence line. I didn't eat much that week, didn't sleep either, because every time the wind shifted, I heard Diesel's last breath in the dirt. And every time I blinked, I saw Karen smiling over his body like she'd just harvested a crop. Luke tried to apologize. But what do you say to a man who lost his best friend over a bounty? You didn't just sell me out, I told him. You sold truth out. He didn't reply. Didn't need to. I saw it in his eyes. The regret. The guilt. The realization that whatever he'd thought this was, it wasn't just paperwork. It was war. That night, I received another message, unmarked envelope. Inside, a temporary guardianship request, filed under Emergency Protection of Community Livestock. Petitioner, Karen Baldwin. Target. Me. She'd gone to the county clerk and claimed I was mentally unfit. Cited PTSD. Claimed I couldn't tell the difference between livestock and threats. That I was a danger to the agricultural landscape. Her words. That phrase stuck with me. Danger to the agricultural landscape. Like I was an invasive species. Something. To be quarantined, cataloged, and removed. Eddie read the filing. Jaw clenched, fingers curled so tight the paper crinkled. She looked up and whispered, "She's not just trying to bankrupt you. She's trying to replace me," I replied. That night, I climbed into the attic and opened the oldest box I owned. Behind a busted radio and a folded rain tarp, 5 flash drives, 2 burner phones, my old tactical route book, and 1 piece of paper I'd written during my last mission overseas. Don't wait for permission to survive. I worked in silence, downloaded everything from Luke's GPS dump, backed up every log, every video, printed copies, highlighted timestamps, cross-referenced drone flight paths. I wasn't just building a case, I was building a counter-narrative. Eddie didn't ask what I was doing, she just brought black coffee and a note. County. Clerk says she's filing more tomorrow. Restraining order. Firearm ban. I've got a friend pulling her records. Might get ugly. I smiled for the first time in days. Let it. The next morning, Luke walked into the barn looking like he hadn't slept either. "Karen's moving cash," he said. "Where?" "Through a shell company tied to landscaping budgets. She's been using it to buy fake inspections." "Proof?" He handed me a flash drive. "Found it on her cloud." That's when I called Sheila, Eddie's friend at the clerk's office. She owed us a favor. By sunset, we had 6 flagged entries, 6 payments, all signed by Karen, each to the same vendor. Vendor that didn't exist. The checks? Processed by a subcommittee that also didn't legally exist. I built dossiers in Kandahar with less intel, I told Eddie. "She's buried fraud inside bureaucracy," she whispered. "She's betting no one will dig through the swamp to find the bones." She doesn't know who she's dealing with. At 2:14 a.m. that night, someone came back. This time, they tried to delete the cameras. They unplugged one. Missed 2. I watched from the house. Didn't move. Didn't even grab my boots. I just recorded. Next morning, I bounced the footage through 3 ghost servers I hadn't logged into in years. And then, Karen texted me, "From a burner. Cute toys. Be careful where you point them." Attached. A photo of my truck, parked by the south paddock, time-stamped 10 minutes earlier. High angle. Drone. And that's when it clicked. She didn't want the land. She wanted control. She wanted to own my movement. Make me afraid to walk the dirt. I printed everything. Invoices, HOA forms, aerial images, video stills. I put them all in a folder and handed them to Caleb. He flipped through it. Slow. "This is enough to bury her," he said. "Then why haven't you?" He looked up. "Because I still wear the badge. If I swing too early, she cries victim." "Exactly," I said, so we made a plan. We wouldn't file, we'd leak, let the press see it first. Let the public strip her clean before the lawyers could spin it. But Karen struck first. Around sunset, a black truck rolled up to the gate. No plates, no markings, tinted windows. The driver didn't get out, just dropped a sealed envelope, and drove off. Inside, a note. "You want a war, Jack? Let's give them a show." That night, 2 of our chickens were found dead, throats slit. One laid across the porch swing like it was napping. The other curled under the chair like it died in peace. Trophies. I buried them myself. Didn't let Eddie see. Didn't tell Caleb, because this wasn't legal anymore. It was personal. She was done playing chess. Now she wanted blood, and so did I. I'd spent weeks gathering proof, building cases, thinking like a soldier, but she didn't care about law. She wanted to see what I'd do when the law failed, and she was about to find out. The next morning, I lit up the printer. Invoices.txt logs, security cam stills, drone data, voice, recordings, triplicates, flash drives, one labeled press, one labeled state AG, one labeled burn if caught. Eddie came down halfway through. She didn't speak, just dropped a mug of black coffee and a peanut butter sandwich beside me. "You okay?" she asked. "No. You want to be?" I didn't answer, because I wasn't sure. I used to be the guy who pulled his punches. I used to believe that if you gave people enough rope, they'd hang themselves. But Karen had built a noose around my family and dared me to watch. So this time, I didn't wait. By 7:45 a.m., the file went live. 30 pages. One PDF cover. Title: The HOA Queen's Kingdom of Fraudot, 8:10 a.m. Caleb showed up with a new file, her election documents. I opened them. The signatures? Scans. 2 of the signers had moved 4 years ago. One had died in 2018. Forgery, Caleb said. Or worse. At 9 a.m., the HOA forums exploded. Residents from other neighborhoods came forward. One said Karen charged them $300 for a missing mailbox screw. Another said she denied ramp access because the concrete was the wrong shade. By 9:40, I was watching the local news feed. Karen stood outside the courthouse, cameras flashing, sweat breaking across her forehead. She raised her voice, called it deep-faked nonsense. But her hand was shaking, her voice cracked on the word audit, and someone filmed it from their car, posted it to Facebook. Caption read, "Local HOA president caught in lies. Melts down after rancher's bombshell leak." I didn't smile, didn't pump my fist. I just sat on the porch and watched the wind roll through the east field. Luke came out with 2 beers, handed me one. Didn't sit, just leaned against the rail. "Didn't know she'd go that far," he said. "You helped her." I thought I was just documenting. "There's no just in betrayal," he nodded. "I know. I'm still here." That counted for something. Not much, but something. Eddie joined, us hot coffee in her hand, her gaze fixed on the barn. "You remember what she said when Diesel died?" she asked. I nodded. Said she thought he was a hog. She said it like she rehearsed it. She had. Eddie didn't speak for a while. Then she said, "My dad's farm got taken when I was 9. Paperwork, technicality, we left in the middle of dinner. That why you stayed?" "No," she said, turning to me. "I stayed because when they took Diesel, you didn't cry. You got louder. That hit me somewhere old, somewhere raw. At noon, the leak hit cable news. The headline ran straight off. The prompter: Rancher uncovers HOA fraud web, forgery, abuse of power, illegal surveillance. They played the cam footage. Karen, behind the fence, rifle in hand. They played the audio. "If we push him hard enough, he'll punch." And then they showed me, old military photo, in uniform, helping evac locals during a flood. That photo wasn't part of the leak. Eddie must have sent it. I didn't ask. At 2 p.m., Caleb returned with subpoenas. Karen's assets were being frozen, her books opened. At 3:12, my phone buzzed again. No number. Hope the cameras are rolling, Jack. The next scene's going to hurt. I didn't respond. Didn't forward it. Just read it twice and hit delete, because I already knew what she meant. Cornered people don't fold. They detonate. And Karen wasn't cornered. She was armed, and she wasn't done. Not yet. The part that hit hardest wasn't what burned, it was what didn't. The flames started slow, too slow for an accident. Like she wanted me to see it before it spread, like she was testing how fast I'd run. We put it out quick, no animals harmed. House untouched, but the tool shed? Gone. And so were the map files, easement records, survey documents, my dad's boundary sketches. Burned to carbon. It wasn't random. It was surgical. She didn't torch the house, Caleb said quietly, squinting through the smoke. She carved a path. She's not just attacking us, I replied. She's trying to erase us. That night we lost power, not out of nowhere. Cut, clean, Luke found it while reviewing the feed. East line again. Always the east. A single sensor tripped at 3:09 a.m. Then, nothing. Eddie didn't ask. Just handed me the flashlight. She knew the drill. We moved fast. No boots, no radio chatter. Just the cold and the crunch of dirt beneath. Our feet caught Denny at the fence line. Gas jug in one hand, crowbar in the other. Grin on his face like he was proud to be caught. Karen says this land was never yours, he said. Says you're the squatter. I raised my rifle. He didn't flinch, just smirked. You gonna shoot me on camera, old man? That's when Caleb pulled up. No sirens, no headlights, just a man caught between justice and duty. He didn't draw, didn't shout. He stared, and Denny broke. Muttered something about just doing what she asked. Said, you don't know what she's capable of. That stuck with me, because it wasn't bluster. It was fear. He backed into the woods. Caleb let him go. Bait, he said. But I wasn't sure we could afford bait anymore. The next morning, our water line clogged. Dead raccoon, tied, wrapped, stuffed, into the pipe like a warning. Note pinned to the fur. Keep digging, see who ends up buried. That's when something inside me snapped. Not loud, not angry, just cracked. I walked to the southern pasture alone. No boots, no rifle. Just the sky and the dirt and the weight in my chest. And I sat there, in the grass, in the silence, and thought about 2007, about a mission guarding a poppy burn in a nameless valley. We hadn't slept in 3 days. One night, one of my men just sat down, didn't cry, didn't scream, didn't break things. He just took off his helmet and looked past us all like he'd walked out of his own body. That's how I felt now, watching this war roll through my land, my name, my bloodline, and realizing it no longer belonged to me. Eddie found me, didn't speak, just sat beside me, handed me her lighter, and said, I lit my dad's farm on fire when I was 12. I turned, stunned. After they evicted us, she added. I went back with a matchbook and a bottle of kerosene. Didn't get caught, didn't fix anything, but it felt like I did something. Then why tell me? Because you're still here, she said, and that means it's not lost yet. That night, we caught Denny again. Only this time he tripped a boar trap, rusty clamp locked around his leg. He screamed, flailed, tried to crawl. Luke tackled him. Caleb arrived next, fists clenched. We didn't yell, didn't threaten, just stood over him, letting the weight of everything he'd done collapse in on him. She said it was just a scare, he whimpered. Said no one would get hurt. Who? I asked. He didn't answer. Didn't need to. Because that night, a package arrived at our gate, wrapped in brown paper. Inside, a voice recorder. Karen's voice. He's too close. If Denny fails, we pull the trigger. I want that land tied up in litigation until his grandkids die of boredom, and if the wife gets involved, then she gets what the bull got. I clenched the recorder so tight it cracked in my palm. Eddie didn't blink. Just whispered, "We end this. Now." That was the line. Threaten me? Fine. Threaten my animals? I'll fight. Threaten my wife? You signed your own sentence. I didn't bring the cops, didn't call the press, didn't tell Caleb what I was planning, because this wouldn't end in a courtroom. This would end in dirt. At 3:02 a.m., I unlocked the gate, let the wind swing it wide. Waited, Eddie beside me, rifle in her lap, her silence heavier than steel. Karen came at 4:26, no headlights, black SUV, no tags. She stepped out like royalty, clipboard, white jacket, pearl earrings catching moonlight. The frost in her breath turned to smoke in the cold. She stared down the eastern fence like she was measuring for curtains. "You could have avoided all this," she said. I said nothing. I never wanted to destroy you, just wanted what was mine. "You sent mixed messages." "I never lied," she smirked. I pulled the recorder from my coat, pressed play, take the horse, burn the feed, make him sell, scare the wife, break something. Her face didn't move, but her hand tightened on the clipboard. The brush shifted. Amanda stepped out, followed by Roy, phone raised, camera blinking, and Caleb, badge gleaming under the moon. "You're done," I said. Karen blinked, then, shockingly, laughed. "You think this is justice? You think this ends me?" "No," I said. "It ends your story." She stepped forward, eyes sharp. "You want to be a Carter so bad? Fine. Die like one." She turned to Amanda. "You betrayed blood for him?" Amanda didn't flinch. "I chose to stop being your alibi." Karen backed toward the SUV, but paused. One last look. Cold, flat. "You're still nothing but a placeholder. This land dies with you." I walked past her, ripped her family stake from the dirt, snapped it over my knee, dropped the pieces at her feet. She didn't speak, didn't pick it up, just got in the SUV and drove away. 3 days later, federal indictment, mail fraud, wire fraud, perjury, criminal, trespass. Bail denied, Amanda testified. Roy submitted footage. Caleb turned over the recorder. Karen's house was raided. Her kingdom turned into exhibits. And the ranch? Quiet. Until the trailer showed up. Battered, unmarked, left half a mile from our west fence. Inside, buckshot alive, ribs visible, left hoof bruised, eyes wide and terrified. But when I opened the gate, he didn't run. He walked straight to me, stopped, nuzzled. My back pocket, sugar cubes. Just like always, I felt something break in me, but I didn't cry. I just nodded. Good boy. Luke helped lead him home. Eddie cried when he stepped into Diesel's stall. Caleb stayed behind to make notes, but I saw him wipe his eyes once. We rebuilt the barn, planted clover over the east line, poured concrete over the last shifted post, and embedded a metal plate, Carter. 1985 that spring. The grass grew taller than it had in a decade. We took in rescues again. Buckshot's leg healed. Luke stayed on full time. Eddie added her name to the deed. And me, I slept for the first time in months. Karen never got a trial. Took a deal. 10 years. No appeal, no headlines, just a footnote. And this land? It stayed what it had always been. Ours, not because of a deed, not because of a ruling, but because we never left. Some say land is just soil, but land remembers. It remembers who built, who bled, and who tried to steal it. Some people fight for land, others fight for what land remembers. I used to think this was just about diesel, about HOA citations, boundary disputes, a woman with too much power and a rifle she didn't earn, but that changed the day I got the call. Blocked number. The voice? Old, rough, like gravel filtered through smoke. I told her not to do this, the voice rasped. I didn't speak. She doesn't listen, never has, just like her father. And then, the click. Dead line. But that voice, I knew I'd never heard it before, and yet it chilled me, because I'd never mentioned her father. Not once. And nobody else alive should have known what mine did to hers. Unless this didn't start with diesel. Unless this started before me. I climbed into the attic and pulled down a cedar box I hadn't opened since the day my dad died. Inside, old war deeds. Tax receipts faded like fog. Survey maps so brittle they flaked at the edges. And buried in the center. An envelope. Yellowed. Labeled in my father's handwriting. Grange dispute. 83 inside. A letter. A legal memo. And a photo. 2 men in a dry field, boots dusty. Rage on their faces. One was my father. The other, Earl Baldwin. Karen's. Father. They weren't shaking hands, they were shouting. My dad's finger was jammed into Earl's chest. The fence post in the background? The same post that still stands in my eastern pasture. The back of the photo read, Survey line contested. No contact after this. I showed Eddie. She read the documents, lips pressed into a tight line. She's not taking the ranch, she whispered. No, I said. She's trying to rewrite it. That night I dug through digital archives, county scans, local ag digests, and there it was, an article from 1985. Fence fight turns ugly in Grange County. No charges filed, names redacted, details vague, but the date, location, and dispute matched. It said the Baldwins filed the original claim, but it was overturned. Lack of survey evidence, the court ruled in our favor, but one clerk's note chilled me. Dispute led to hostile encounter. Rumors of quiet settlement. Translation, my dad didn't win that land. Someone helped him hide the record. And Karen, she wasn't just attacking me. She was reclaiming a fight she believed her family lost. Eddie sat beside me, still holding the faded photo. You think we're on stolen land? She asked. No, I said. I think we're on burned land. That's when I smelled smoke. We rushed to the west barn. No fire. But inside, a circle of fresh ashes, still warm, and in the middle, a wooden stake, not burned. Branded Baldwani dropped to my knees, sifted through the ash, black paper, fused plastic. My grandfather's affidavit? Gone. My dad's original hand-drawn map? Vapor. Everything I'd preserved for decades. Gone. Eddie saw the nameplate and stopped breathing. I didn't speak. Couldn't. I didn't feel angry. Didn't even feel sad. I felt small. Because the truth was bigger than me. And now, it was just missing. We tried to file restitution at the clerk's office, but without originals, burden of proof shifted. And Karen? She'd already filed a new legacy claim against the Eastern Edge, not for ownership, for reallocation. She wasn't just fighting for land, she was fighting for time, and hers had a head start. Back at the house, I found one last box, dusty, heavy, a VHS tape, label, Community Council, 1985. Eddie's sister still had a player. We drove to her garage, plugged it into a paint-speckled TV, and watched. The tape flickered and shook, but the sound was clear. My father stood at a podium, flanked by two men. Voice flat, steady. "We win this. We don't just get soil. We get memory," a voice off-screen asked. "But the Baldwins had a claim, didn't they?" My dad paused, looked directly at the camera, and smiled. That smile didn't say innocent. It said, finished. I didn't speak for the rest of the night. Eddie didn't either. She just held my hand tighter than she ever had. The next morning, the Eastern. Fence was gone, post ripped. New stake in the ground, red ribbon flapping like a flag. Stapled flyer. "This land has always been ours. The paperwork just forgot." I stood in front of it for 20 minutes. Then I ripped it down, burned it in a coffee can, buried the ashes at the base of Diesel's grave. Karen didn't want to win. She wanted to replace, not just my name, not just my land, my history. She wanted my family reduced to a mistake in a filing cabinet. But if she thought I'd let her erase me, then she never knew what kind of story this really was, because this wasn't a lawsuit anymore. This was legacy war, and I wasn't finished. Not even close. That day I started building a war room, not with rifles, with paper. Luke cracked her HOA. Accounts wide open. Found folders labeled Legacy Holdings. Inside, 3 charities, 2 trust accounts, all youth development. All fake funds moved in circles. Back to Karen's personal account. 1 payment, $8,000 memo line, community leadership training, recipient, Baldwin Youth Enrichment Fund, P.O., box, same as her home. "She's not just corrupt," Eddie muttered. "She's skilled." "No," I said, "she's practiced." But this time, I wasn't going to leak it. I wanted her to look me in the eye when her empire fell. So we set the trap. A formal invitation, HOA conflict resolution session, hosted by Jack Carter tone, respectful, civil, non-threatening. Eddie helped write it, Luke delivered it, Caleb reviewed it, Amanda RSVP'd within 5 minutes, Karen took 2 hours, but she said yes. The night before the meeting, I didn't sleep. I sat in the dark. Fireplace cold. My dad's photo on the mantel. "You lied to win once," I whispered. "Let's see if I can win clean." Eddie found me like that. Barefoot. Quiet. Still. She didn't pep talk me, just sat down. "You sure you're not doing this for revenge?" "I'm sure." "You sure it won't feel like revenge?" That part, I wasn't sure about. The next morning, I put on my church jacket, the one I hadn't worn since my mother's funeral. We met at the Grang Center. Caleb wired the room. Mike in the chair leg, back up in the projector mount. 7 chairs at the table, 4 filled, me, Eddie, Amanda, Karen. She walked in like she owned the building, pearls, clipboard. That same smirk she wore the day she shot Diesel. Amanda looked tired. Not weak, just frayed. We started light. Fences. Animal classifications. Decibel ordinances. Karen smiled through it all. Amanda took notes. Eddie asked quiet questions. Luke waited in the hallway. Then I opened the folder. 3 checks, all signed by Karen, all made out to Baldwin Youth Enrichment, all deposited into her personal account. Amanda stopped writing. Karen didn't flinch. "These are fake charities," I said. Karen blinked once. You're mistaken. Am I? You can't prove intent. I slid the IRS letter across the table, 2 eons flagged as fraudulent. Label, grant laundering. Karen's eye twitched. Amanda stood up, walked to the door, paused, then turned to face us. I stayed quiet, she said, because I was scared. Not anymore. She left. Karen turned to me. You think this scares me? No, I said. I think you scare yourself. She leaned in, voice low. You think you're safe? Your son's a cop? Your little tech mole? He's got a warrant in Alabama. Your wife's got a sealed juvenile record. You want me to start leaking too? You won't. Why not? Because when this story hits the wire, I tapped the mic under the table. You go from HOA president to federal felon. That was it. She blinked. Just once. Not in fear, but in rage. She stood, tossed her pen. You want the land? Keep it. It's cursed anyway. She didn't slam the door, didn't say goodbye, just vanished. But that wasn't the win. The win came later. When Amanda's name appeared on the HOA site, Acting President Karen Baldwin resigned effective. Immediately, no apology, no statement, just a vacuum, and in its place, silence. The loudest kind. 2 hours later, the sheriff's office posted a public inquiry notice. Potential HOA fund misappropriation. No name attached, but everyone knew. I sat on the porch with Eddie, Caleb, and Luke that night. We didn't toast. Didn't smile. Just watched the sun fall behind the field line, and for the first time since Diesel died, the grass didn't look like a battlefield. I should have known the fire wasn't the end, but I didn't expect the next move to come in an envelope. 2 days after Karen's name vanished from the HOA site, a letter appeared at our gate, plastic sealed, no return address. Inside, a notarized claim filed through a rural office 2 counties over. Attached? A photocopy of the 1949 Carter Property Survey, but this one was different. Stamped. Pending reallocation under legacy dispute filed by Baldwin Family Trust. I drove it straight to the county clerk. She read it twice. Then a third time. This isn't valid, she said, then paused. But if this gets in front of the right judge, the burden shifts. Meaning? Meaning, the land goes into legal freeze. Weeks. Months. Maybe more. Back home, Caleb laid it out like a briefing. If she can establish a reasonable claim with physical presence on the line, she can file a priority easement. Eddie stared at the wall. Luke's hand clenched the porch. Railing. You mean if she marks it, she can tie it up? No, I said. She won't mark it. I stepped outside and stared at the east field. She'll fence it. She doesn't want to win in court, I muttered. She wants me to lose in memory. That night we heard barking, movement, flashlights in the east field. Eddie grabbed her rifle without a word. I followed, Luke behind me, crowbar in hand. Caleb stayed in the shadows, silent. We didn't call it in. We walked into it. What we found wasn't a fence. Not yet. It was a shovel, half buried. And beside it, a crate, barbed wire, fresh. Inside, a live GPS tracker, blinking, wrapped in red ribbon. The tag read, Property Division, Baldwin West. She's not just claiming it, Eddie said, voice low. She's prepping to sell it. I didn't speak. I just pulled out my phone and made a call to the one man who still owed me. Roy Old Convoy, buddy. Private surveyor now. retired Army Corps. Limped away from the same roadside bomb I did. He arrived at dawn, dust still on his tires. Walked the east field in silence. Tape, scope, notepad. When he finished, he looked at me, face grim. She shifted the line. How much? 21 feet. Not much, but enough. Call it uncertain boundary, he said. Then his voice got quieter. And that Colt you've got? Diesels? Buckshot, I nodded. Roy tapped the map. On this line. That barn's not yours anymore. My heart didn't drop. It caved because Buckshot wasn't just a horse. He was Diesel's bloodline. He was my last clean thing. My son's kid named him. Jet black, barely a year old. Raised on sugar cubes and morning light. Now he was on the wrong side of a line, a disputed asset. That night we camped by the barn. No words, no jokes. Even Eddie wore her boots to bed. 6 a.m., rustling, then headlights, one truck, two figures. Denny. And a man in khakis with a clipboard, county seal on his chest. Too clean for this dirt. They started unrolling fence wire. Fast, quiet, professional, like they'd done it before. I stepped into the beam. Eddie beside me, Luke by the door, Roy filming, Caleb rolling in behind, no lights. Denny froze. The inspector didn't even blink. Just flashed his badge. I'm observing a land adjustment under state code. Caleb, cut him off. You're violating a court freeze. I have jurisdiction. No, Caleb said, stepping closer. You have nerve. Denny looked at me, sweating now. I didn't know you'd be out here. Why do you care? She said if I finish the post, I get my name back on the deed. You're building someone else's lie. She said this was always hers. His voice cracked. She said you stole it, just like your dad did. Roy stepped forward, showed the map overlay, shifted lines, forged stamp, GPS bug on private soil. The inspector didn't respond. He just left. Didn't even fake outrage. Denny followed. But this time, he looked back, and this time, he looked ashamed. Not enough. But something. The next morning, the barn door was open. No prints, no footage, just a broken latch. And Buckshot, gone. Rope by the feed bin, cut clean, and next to it, a card, Baldwin family. Holdings returned to rightful range. I didn't speak. I walked to the barn wall and punched it, twice. Splinters in my knuckles, pain in my elbow. Didn't matter. Eddie sat on the hay bale, hands shaking. She took him. She whispered. Then she screamed. Not loud, not sharp, but like something inside her cracked. I sat on the floor in Diesel's stall and said 3 words I hadn't said since my mother died. I need to end this. She'd taken the fence, the deed, the horse, but not me. And the only thing she'd left me with, rage, and tomorrow I was giving it back. Because there's only one kind of silence worse than grief. The kind where your decision is already made, and the only thing left is deliverance. Some wars don't start with a bullet. They start with a boundary line, a handshake never given, a memory never buried. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat on the porch, lighter in hand, staring at the tree line. The wind sounded different, tighter, like it was holding its breath. At 3:02 a.m., I opened the gate again, let the east wind carry it wide. This time, I wasn't just waiting for her, I was inviting her. Eddie sat beside me, crossed boots, rifle across her lap, no makeup, no words, Just that same look she had the day she buried her last brother, quiet resolve wrapped in grief and gunpowder. Karen came at 4:26, black SUV, no headlights, no plates. She stepped out like a queen reclaiming her throne, clipboard in one hand, a long white coat buttoned tight, pearls catching the moonlight. She didn't speak right away. Just looked across the field like she was picturing drapes and a patio. "You know," she said softly, "you could have avoided all this." I didn't answer. She stepped forward, slow. "I never wanted to destroy you, Jack. I just wanted what was mine. You sent mixed messages." I never lied. I pulled the recorder from my coat pocket, pressed play. "Take the horse, burn the feed, make him sell, scare the wife, break something. He's not dangerous, just stubborn." Karen's smile didn't fade, but her grip on the clipboard tightened. The brush shifted behind her. Amanda stepped out first, then Roy, camera in hand, and finally Caleb, badge gleaming, eyes hard. "You're done," I said. Karen blinked. Not fear. Not shock. Calculation. Then she laughed, low, dry. "You think this is justice?" she said. "You think this ends me?" "No," I said. "It ends your story." She stepped forward, her eyes sharper than I'd ever seen them. "You want to be a Carter so bad?" she whispered. "Fine. Die like one." She turned to Amanda. "You betrayed blood for him?" Amanda didn't flinch. "I chose to stop being your alibi." Karen paused, looked at each of us. The porch light caught something in her face, or not regret. Rage, quiet, controlled, old. She backed toward the SUV, then she stopped. "You're still nothing, Jack, just a placeholder. This land dies with you." I didn't answer. I walked past her, ripped the Baldwin steak from the soil, snapped it in half, dropped it at her feet. She didn't pick it up, just got in the car and disappeared. 3 days later, the indictment hit. Mail fraud, wire fraud, perjury, criminal trespass. Bail denied, Amanda testified. Roy's footage submitted. Caleb delivered the audio. They raided Karen's house. Found enough doctored documents to build a library. Her name was stripped from every HOA record within a week. But I didn't celebrate, because the ranch still felt hollow until the trailer showed up. Battered, dumped half a mile from our western fence. No driver, no markings, just dust and rust. Inside, buckshot, ribs visible, hoof bruised, head low, but alive. When I opened the gate, he didn't run. He walked. To me, stopped, and shoved his nose into my back pocket, right where I used to hide sugar cubes. That's when it hit me. Not in my chest, not in my fists, in my eyes. I felt something crack behind them, but I didn't cry. I just nodded. Good boy. Luke helped lead him back. Eddie cried when Buckshot stepped into Diesel's stall. Caleb didn't speak, but I saw him wipe his face once when he thought we weren't looking. We rebuilt the barn, repainted the porch, poured concrete over the eastern line, embedded a metal plaque. Carter. 1985, that spring, the grass grew taller than I'd seen in 10 years. We started taking in rescues again. Buckshot's leg healed. Luke stayed full-time. Eddie added her name to the deed. And me? I slept through the night for the first time in 6 months. Karen never got a sentencing hearing. She took a deal. 10 years. No appeal. No headline. Just a footnote. But then came the final message. A voicemail. No caller ID. But the voice? Familiar? You. Think she gave up? You think she walks away just because you embarrassed her? She still has the original map, Carter. And she's not done drawing lines. I didn't delete it. I played it twice, then stood up, because I knew exactly what it meant. I'd taken her power, her silence, her name. But if she still had that map, then she still had reach. And I wasn't about to let her redraw my life. Because some fights don't end in court. They end when a man decides enough is enough. 2 days later, a second letter appeared. No envelope. Plastic sealed, stamped from a tiny rural office in the next county over. Inside? A legacy claim, filed through a legal loophole I hadn't heard of since Afghanistan. Attached, a photocopy of the 1949 Carter Property Survey, but this one was edited red ink. Different stamp, approved, pending reallocation. Baldwin Family Trust Boundary. Adjustment in progress. It wasn't fake. It was weaponized history, and it meant one thing. Litigation freeze. They could lock up the land for months, maybe years, just by filing this. And if they could fence it, if they could mark it, then they could claim it was theirs. Caleb laid out the math. She's going to try to reassert ownership through an easement. What triggers it? Presence, movement, occupation. She builds a new fence. She can stall everything you've built. Eddie stared at the wall, arms crossed. She doesn't want to win, she muttered. She wants your name to vanish. That night we heard it, dogs barking, brush cracking, the kind of movement that doesn't try to hide. We moved fast, flashlights, rifles, no words. We hit the east field just before 3 a.m. What we found wasn't just a stake, it was a shovel, half sunk, a man's boot print, and next to it, a crate, barbed wire, fence coils, fresh steel, and a blinking GPS tracker, tag Baldwin Property Division, West. She's prepping to sell it, Eddie whispered. I made one call. Roy. By dawn, he was pacing the east line with his survey gear. This is worse than I thought, he said. She shifted the line by 21 feet. And, he looked up, on this map, your barn's no longer yours. That's when it sank in. She wasn't just taking dirt. She was taking buckshot. Diesel's bloodline. The last clean thing I had. That night we didn't sleep. We set up chairs by the barn, coffee in thermoses, flashlights in laps. Even Eddie kept her boots on. 6 a.m. Movement, truck headlights, 2 men, Denny, and someone new, county inspector. Badge on a lanyard, clipboard in hand. They started laying fence wire like they were stringing garland. Calm, like this was routine. I stepped into the beam. Eddie beside me, Luke by the barn door, Roy filming. Caleb behind the trees. Denny froze. The inspector just raised his ID. Observing a boundary revision per subdivision code, you're in a court-ordered freeze, Caleb said, stepping forward. I have jurisdiction. You have guts. Roy showed the overlay, the forged stamp, the live GPS tag. The inspector's eyes didn't blink. He just left. Denny followed, pale. But this time, he looked back. And this time, I saw shame. The next morning, the barn door was cracked open. No prints, no camera feed, just silence. Buckshot's rope was cut. Clean. On the ground, a card. Return to rightful range. Baldwin family. Holdings I didn't speak, didn't shout, just walked to the barn wall and punched it. Splinters in my knuckles. Blood in my sleeve. Didn't care. Eddie sat on a hay bale, staring at nothing. She took him, she whispered. Then she screamed, low, raw, not from pain, from loss, and I just sat in Diesel's empty stall, put my head in my hands, and said 3 words I hadn't said since the day we buried my mother. I need to end this. She took the land, the lines, the horse. She came for my history, but she didn't get me. And now, all she left me with was rage, and tomorrow I'd give it back. The day came quiet. No media, no sheriff, no Caleb, just me and the land. At 4:26 a.m., the gate creaked. No headlights. Karen stepped out of a new SUV, clipboard, white coat, pearl earrings. Same. Cold eyes. She looked across the field like it was already hers. You could have avoided all this, she said again. I didn't reply. She stepped forward. Calm. Confident. I never wanted to hurt you, Jack. I just wanted what my father lost. You sure sent mixed messages, she shrugged. I never lied. I hit play on the new recorder, her voice. He's too close. If Denny fails, we pull the trigger. I want that land tied up in litigation until his grandkids die of boredom. If the wife gets involved, she gets what the bull got. Karen didn't flinch. She smiled. Then the brush rustled. Amanda stepped out. Camera in hand, Roy beside her, and Caleb, no badge showing, just his eyes. You're done, I said. Karen's breath caught, but she didn't panic. She leaned in. You think this is justice? No, I said. It's the end of your story. You think I care about jail? No, I said. I think you care about being forgotten. She stepped back. You're still nothing, Jack. A placeholder. A ghost in a file. This land dies with you. I walked past her, ripped her stake from the dirt, snapped it over my knee, dropped it at her feet. She stared at it like it was her father's legacy dying in the soil. And it was. She didn't pick it up. She just turned and left. 3 days later, she was indicted again. More charges. Federal this time. Wire fraud, grant laundering, forgery. No deal. Bail revoked, Amanda testified. Roy submitted footage. Caleb turned over everything. Karen's legacy, gone. No headlines, just exhibits. But that wasn't the real ending. Because 1 week later, the trailer came back. Dumped at the west gate, inside, buckshot, alive, bruised, ribs showing, but standing. I opened the gate. He didn't bolt. He walked right up to me and nudged my back pocket. Sugar cubes, just like always. And that time, I cried. Quiet, alone. But I did. Luke helped lead him back. Eddie cried when he crossed the threshold. Caleb stayed behind, but I saw his eyes. We rebuilt the barn, replanted the clover, and poured a slab over the east post, stamped into the concrete. Carter. 1985 that spring, the field bloomed higher than I'd ever seen. We took in rescues again. Buckshot healed. Luke stayed on. Eddie added her name to the deed. And me? I didn't need revenge. I just needed the land to remember I never left. Some say land is just soil. But soil holds blood. Soil holds names. Soil holds truth. And this land, it knows who built it, who tried to take it, and who bled to keep it. I don't want a statue. I don't want a plaque. But I'll tell you this. When I die, I won't be buried on land I borrowed. I'll be buried on land I fought for, on land I earned, on land that remembers me.